"Laura, I'm not ready to love again," and pulled her exhausted 6-year-old a little closer against her shoulder. At the small metal table beside the Juniper Park playground, she looked at me over the plain paper coffee cup in my hand with a soft, apologetic smile that never quite left her eyes. I stayed in the chair opposite her and kept both hands on my side of the table. I set the cup down between us. "I'll be here when you are." I let the silence sit there. If the afternoon was over, Laura got to be the one who ended it. A minute earlier, I had finally stopped pretending our short Thursday coffees were just convenient accidents. I had asked whether she would let me take her to dinner sometime. Just the two of us. No playground, no rushed 20-minute window before she had to get home. The late afternoon light slanted through the trees behind the playground. Her daughter shifted in her sleep and tucked her face deeper into Laura's floral dress. Laura's left arm stayed around the girl's back by instinct. I didn't mistake that protective hold for a problem I was supposed to solve. She looked at the paper cup, tracing the cardboard seam with her thumb. "Does that mean you're just going to wait indefinitely?" she asked. Her voice was quiet, careful not to wake her daughter, but the question had an edge of genuine concern. "I have a mortgage and a dental practice," I said. "I'll keep going to work. I'll buy my own groceries. I'll live my life. I'm just not going to pretend I don't want to take you out to dinner." Something in her face eased. She didn't offer a compromise, and she didn't give me a maybe later to keep in my pocket. She just nodded, held my gaze for a few seconds, then stood and shifted her daughter's weight against her hip. "I should get her home," Laura said. "Have a good evening, Laura." I watched her walk toward the park exit, her steps measured and steady. I didn't follow her. I didn't offer to carry her bag. I sat at the metal table until my coffee was cold, looking at the empty chair across from me. And then I threw the cup in the trash and walked home. The next morning, the schedule at Cedar Glen Family Dentistry went off the rails by 9:15 a.m. My third patient of the day was a 7-year-old boy named Leo, who had decided that the motorized dental chair was an interrogation device. He was currently gripping the plastic armrests with white knuckles, refusing to open his mouth. His father, a guy in a pressed suit who had checked his phone 4 times in the last 3 minutes, from the corner of the room. "Can we just get this over with, Dr. Bates? I have a conference call at 10. I kept my mask pulled down and my hands away from the tray of instruments. "We'll get there," I said to the father, my voice stripped of any urgency. I turned back to Leo. "You don't have to open your mouth until you're ready, Leo. We're just looking today. Nobody is doing any work until you tell me it's okay." "Dr. Bates, really, if you just tell him to—" "I'm not going to rush him," I said, looking directly at the father this time. "If we force it, he's going to hate sitting in this chair for the next 10 years. I'd rather run 20 minutes late today than fight him every 6 months." The father frowned, but he stopped tapping his foot. I spent the next 15 minutes talking to Leo about a Lego spaceship until he finally opened his mouth enough for me to count his teeth. My morning was backed up after that. I told the front desk the delay was mine and asked them to give the next family an honest estimate. You couldn't put a timer on panic because the schedule had boxes around it. The same was true of Laura's answer. I had said exactly what I wanted, and there was nothing useful I could do afterward. No better argument. No second attempt that would turn her answer into one I liked. At the end of the day, I locked up the clinic and walked home past Juniper Park. It wasn't a detour. The preschool where Laura taught was only 2 blocks from my practice. Near the swings, she was guiding a wandering toddler back toward his mother, while her own daughter built a fortress out of wood chips. Laura moved with the calm efficiency of someone who had spent all day around small children. She often took closing shifts, which was why our coffee run-ins had always fit into short windows before dinner. I stopped on the sidewalk for a few seconds. Walking over would have been easy. I could have said hello, asked about her day, and told myself it didn't count as pursuing her because the park happened to be on my route. That would have been nonsense, and I knew it. I had told her I would be there when she was ready. If I started arranging casual collisions the very next day, patience would just be pressure, wearing a nicer shirt. So I kept walking. I went home, made dinner, answered 2 patient messages, and took the trash to the curb. I didn't send a text to check in. I let the quiet be quiet. 9 days went by. I worked, I bought groceries, I spent 20 minutes under my kitchen sink discovering that 8 years of dental training had left me completely unqualified to outsmart a clogged drain. A $6 plunger solved it in under a minute. My life, apparently, remained unimpressed by my professional credentials. I did not wait by the phone. I also did not stop noticing Thursdays. The first one passed without a message. At 4:40, I looked at the clock in my office before I could stop myself. Then I finished a chart and went home. The rhythm of the clinic swallowed the week. Back to school season meant a flood of pediatric appointments, which meant my afternoons were a marathon of explaining flossing to kids who were legally opposed to the concept. By Thursday afternoon, my shoulders were tight, and my eyes burned from staring at the harsh overhead lights. I was finishing up my charting at my desk when my phone buzzed on the metal tray. I glanced at the screen. It was a message from Laura. Juniper Park, 4:40. If you have the time, I'd like you there. It was a specific time, place, and request. I typed back, "Is that a real invitation?" Her reply came 30 seconds later. "Yes, a real one. No pressure if you're busy." I read that twice, sent back, "I'm free, see you at 4:40, and caught myself straightening my collar in the dark reflection of my monitor. Apparently dignity had limits. Then I finished my notes, packed my briefcase, and walked the 3 blocks to the park. When I arrived, the late afternoon crowd was starting to thin out. I found Laura sitting at the same metal table we had occupied a week and a half ago. She had a canvas tote bag resting against the leg of the table, and sitting in the center of the grated metal surface were 2 paper coffee cups from the kiosk across the street. Her daughter was 20 yards away, deeply involved in a negotiation over a plastic bucket in the sandbox. Laura looked up as I approached. She didn't look terrified, but she didn't look entirely relaxed either. I pulled out the chair directly across from her, maintaining the same geography as our last conversation, and sat down. "You remembered, I take it, black," I said, looking at the cup closest to me. "It wasn't a difficult profile to memorize," she said, wrapping her hands around her own cup. "Fair enough." I took a sip. It was hot and bitter. "How was work?" "Loud," she said. She watched her daughter for another second, then looked back at me. "I wanted to talk about last week." "You don't owe me an explanation." "I know." Her fingers tightened around her cup. "I almost didn't text you today." I waited. Then I realized I wasn't avoiding you because I wanted you gone. I was avoiding you because I didn't know what I was allowed to want without making everything complicated. That landed harder than any apology would have. "So I want to be clear," she continued. "If we keep doing this, if we sit here, I need a few limits." "Tell me." "I'm not looking for a family arrangement," she said, her voice steady but quiet. "My daughter has a routine. I have a routine. I don't want her getting confused, and I don't want anyone in this town seeing us at a restaurant and deciding we're a package deal." "Understood." "And I don't have the budget or the childcare to treat a Friday night like it's only a restaurant reservation. A dinner means a sitter, timing, getting home when I said I would. I can't just drop everything and date like I did before I had a child." "Understood." She looked at the paper cups. "Right now, this is what I can do. 20, maybe 30 minutes at a park table before I have to go make macaroni and cheese and grade finger paintings." "What works for you works for me," I said. "You don't have to upgrade this because I ask for dinner." I looked around at the chipped paint on the table, the overflowing trash can near the swings, and the 2 lukewarm coffees. "Well," I said dryly, 3 paper cups and a plastic slide is a pretty low bar for an engagement announcement, so I think we're safe from the town gossips." Laura blinked, and then a short, genuine laugh escaped her. The tension in her shoulders dropped a visible inch. "I'm serious, Logan." "I know you are," I said, and let the joke go. "I'm not asking you to rewrite your life." She studied my face for a moment. "I didn't have to invite you today," she said softly. "I could have sat here by myself." "I know. I wanted you here." There was nothing casual in the way she said it. My first instinct was to soften the moment for both of us with another joke. I didn't. "I wanted to come," I said, "and I still want to take you to dinner someday. But coffee is not a consolation prize, Laura. If this is what you want today, I want to be here today." Her eyes dropped for a second, then came back to mine. "Okay." That small word did more to me than it had any right to. We drank our coffee. We talked about a boy in her class who had decided his name was now Batman and had refused to answer to anything else through lunch. I told her about a dental supplier who had shipped me 4,000 cotton rolls instead of 400. "That's a lot of cotton," she said. "I could survive a minor regional shortage." That got another quiet laugh, and then we moved on. When her daughter ran over, red-cheeked and asking for water, Laura unscrewed a bottle from her tote and held it while the girl drank. I slid my chair back enough to stay out of their way. Her daughter gave me a quick, polite glance, said nothing, and ran back toward the sandbox as soon as Laura capped the bottle. Laura watched her go, then looked at me. "Thank you." "For what?" "For not trying too hard with her." I understood what she meant. "You set the pace." She nodded once. Then we finished the last few minutes of our coffee, talking about nothing important at all, which was starting to feel important in its own way. The next week, the pressure in Laura's life didn't come from me. It came from the Blue Ridge Early Learning Center. It was Thursday again. We were at the table. Laura looked tired. There was a faint smudge of what looked like blue washable marker on her collar, and she had spent the first 5 minutes staring into her coffee cup without saying much. "You look like the blue marker one," I said. She glanced at the smudge on her collar and gave me a tired half smile. "Jacqueline, my director." "What did Jacqueline do?" "She needs a permanent closer for Thursdays," Laura said. "We're short-staffed. One of the assistants quit without notice, and the roster is a mess. She pulled me into the office today and asked if I could just take the block permanently, until the end of the year." "And what did you say?" "I said I'd give her an answer tomorrow morning." Laura looked toward the playground. "If I take it, I don't leave the building until 6. By the time I get my daughter, get home, and make dinner, the day is gone." She didn't finish the thought, but the implication hung over the small metal table. If she took the shift, this 30-minute window at Juniper Park ceased to exist. "Do you need the overtime pay?" I asked, keeping it practical. "It helps. It's not strictly necessary, but it helps." She crossed her arms. "I'm just so used to covering the gaps. When someone asks me to step in, my brain just automatically defaults to yes. It's what I do. I make sure the schedule doesn't fall apart." I watched her. She wasn't asking for me to fix it. She certainly wasn't asking for a handout. She was just exhausted by her own reliability. "Let me ask you a question," I said. "Do you actually want the shift? Or is it just muscle memory to say yes because nobody else wants to do it?" Laura looked at me. "If I say no, Jacqueline has to scramble. Another teacher has to move her schedule around." That didn't answer my question. She pressed her lips together. "No, I don't want it. I want to go home at 4:15 and have an hour where nobody is asking me to wipe a table or mediate a dispute over a wooden block." "Then you have your answer." "It's not that simple, Logan." "No," I said. "The answer can be simple. The consequences can still be annoying." She looked at me. "My front desk asked me this week if we could shorten the late pediatric blocks. Everyone wants the after-school slots. We could fit more patients in if I treated every appointment like it was going to go perfectly. But you don't. Some kids need more time. If I rush the ones who are already scared, I get a full schedule and a worse appointment. I lifted one shoulder. So I keep the longer blocks. Even when it costs you. Yes. Laura turned her cup slowly between her hands. I didn't tell her to keep Thursday for me. That would have made her choice about my wants all over again. What do you want the hour for? I asked. She stared toward the playground. I don't know. That's allowed. Her mouth tightened. I don't think I know how to want time if I can't justify what I'm doing with it. That was more honest than a yes or no. She didn't have an answer right away. At the playground, a little boy tripped over a tree root. He went down hard on the grass. His mother, who had been looking at her phone, didn't see it happen. The boy sat up and let out a wail. Laura was half out of her chair before the sound fully registered. She didn't run, but she moved with practiced efficiency, closing the distance, kneeling down a few feet away from the kid. She didn't touch him. She just spoke in a calm, projecting voice that caught the mother's attention. The mother rushed over, scooped the boy up, and Laura quietly backed away, returning to our table. She sat back down, taking a slow breath. "You're good at that," I said. "I can make 10 children feel safe in a room that sounds like a jet engine." She sat down again and rubbed her thumb over the edge of the cup. Then I get home and act like anything I want for myself is an inconvenience. She was quiet for a while. I knew the basic fact she rarely spoke about. Her husband had died 2 years earlier. She had never given me the whole story, and I had never asked her to. The only part that mattered at that table was what his absence had taught her to protect. "I'm not afraid of you, Logan," she said. "I don't think you're going to treat me badly. I don't think you're playing a game." "Then tell me what you're afraid of." She watched her daughter across the playground. "That I'll start looking forward to you." I didn't move. "That she'll notice," Laura continued. "That you'll become part of what Thursday looks like. Then, if it doesn't work out, I don't just stop seeing someone I liked. She has to adjust again, too." Her eyes dropped to her hands. I can't make her pay for me wanting something. I could have told her I would never leave. I wanted to. But we had not even been on one date, and certainty I had not earned would have been another kind of pressure. "I'm not asking for a place in her life," I said. "I'm asking whether you want to know me outside this park. As a man who likes you. One step, that's all." She looked back at me. "And I need to stop hiding behind being careful too," I added. "I notice the Thursdays I don't see you. I notice when my phone doesn't light up at 4:30. I want more than coffee someday. Saying that doesn't mean you owe me more." Her expression softened, but she still looked scared. "Keep the hour if you want the hour," I said. "Even if you spend it alone. Even if you never spend it with me. Just don't give it away because somebody else asked first." Laura looked toward the swings again. Jacqueline needed her answer by Friday morning. For the first time, the question was no longer whether she liked me. We both knew she did. The question was whether she would protect one small piece of her own life long enough to find out what she wanted to do with it. The next morning, Laura told Jacqueline she would not take the permanent Thursday closing block. She sent me a text at noon. I said no. I'm still covering some late days, but not Thursdays. Jacqueline took the schedule back, looked at me for a second, and said, "Then I'll have to move Amy." She wasn't cruel, she was just annoyed, which somehow made me feel worse. I'll lose a few overtime hours too. I still mean no. I read it while standing between 2 treatment rooms. "You can feel awful and still mean no," I wrote back. "See you Thursday." A minute later, 3 dots appeared. "See you Thursday." No one had applauded. Someone else's schedule had shifted. Jacqueline was inconvenienced, and Laura lost money she could have used. The boundary still stood. But when Thursday arrived, the reality of my own professional standards caught up with me. At 3:45 p.m., a 9-year-old girl named Maya came in for a filling. She had a history of severe dental anxiety, and the moment she saw the tray of instruments, she locked up. She wouldn't open her mouth. She started to cry, silent, terrified tears that soaked the paper bib. I looked at the clock on the wall. 4:10 p.m. I was supposed to meet Laura at the park in 30 minutes. It was the first Thursday she had actively fought to keep open. I could have stopped the procedure. I could have told the parents we needed to reschedule, handed Maya off to my hygienist, and made it to the park on time. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't walk away from a panicked kid just to make the park on time. I had told Laura that frightened children should not be rushed. Leaving now would make that speech cheap. I pulled my gloves off, washed my hands, and picked up my phone. Laura, I have a patient having a rough time. I can't rush her. I'm going to miss 4:40. I'm sorry. Please don't wait for me. I hit send. No reply came before I put the phone back in my pocket. I put fresh gloves on and sat down next to Maya. All right, kiddo. We're going to put the tools away for a minute. Let's just talk. It took an hour and 15 minutes to finish the filling. By the time the parents left, thanking me profusely, the clinic was empty, and the sun was dipping below the tree line. I checked my phone. Nothing from Laura. The message showed as delivered. That was all. The air conditioner hummed above the dark treatment rooms, suddenly loud in the clinic that had been full of voices 10 minutes earlier. I locked the clinic and took my usual route home. Juniper Park was nearly empty by then. The sandbox had been raked over by 100 small shoes. One swing moved in the wind. Our metal table sat under the trees with 4 empty chairs. I slowed without meaning to. This was the part nobody put into advice about doing the right thing. Sometimes you kept your standard and still lost the thing you wanted. I had asked Laura to protect this hour. Then, the first week she did, I was the one who failed to show up. I stood there long enough to feel foolish. Then I kept walking. I didn't send another apology. I had already told her the truth. If she was disappointed, she was allowed to be. If the mist afternoon had touched exactly the fear she had warned me about, I didn't get to talk her out of that either. My phone buzzed when I was halfway home. I stopped under a streetlight. I saw your message. I was disappointed, Laura had written. Not angry, just disappointed. I needed a minute before I answered. You did the right thing staying with her. Is your patient okay? The relief that moved through me was sharp enough to make me close my eyes for a second. She had not pretended the missed meeting meant nothing. She had not turned it into abandonment either. She had simply told the truth. She got through it, I wrote. It was rough, but she got through it. Thank you for telling me you were disappointed. Her answer came a minute later. I'm learning. So was I. The next day, my phone buzzed during my lunch break. Do you actually have a way to make those first few minutes easier for kids like that? I stared at the question. Not a good one yet, I wrote. We still make the room feel like an ambush sometimes. Instead of texting back, she called me. I answered on the second ring. Hello? Do you actually want a teacher's answer? Yes. Then stop explaining so much once they're already scared, she said. I could hear the low hum of preschool nap time behind her. Give them the first part of the order before they sit down. The first part? 3 pictures for the transition into the appointment. Chair, bib, mirror. Something they can hold and hand back at each step. Once they're settled, you explain the actual procedure the way you normally do. We do it with transitions all day. They don't have to love what's next. They just need to know what happens first. I sat back in my office chair. That might work. It might, she said. You'd have to make it fit your clinic. There it was again. She wasn't trying to run my practice. She had simply seen the problem from a direction I hadn't. I want to try it, I said. Thank you. Tell me if it helps. I will. She hung up before either of us could make the call mean more than it did. I liked that almost as much as the idea itself. I spent the next 2 days working with my receptionist on 3 simple picture cards for the first minute of an appointment. Nothing elaborate. A chair, a bib, a dental mirror. On Tuesday, a nervous kindergartner came in, holding his mother's hand so tightly her knuckles had gone pale. I gave him the cards before he saw the tray. First one? I asked. He looked at the picture of the chair, then climbed up without being asked twice. He still didn't like the suction tube. He still needed breaks, but he knew what came next, and the whole room stayed calmer because of it. Afterward, I sent Laura one text. The cards helped. Her reply came during my lunch break. Good. I'm glad. No heart, no joke, no extra meaning attached. I liked being able to tell her she had helped me without turning it into a debt she had to repay. By Thursday, I had started carrying a jacket to work. When I crossed the street from the coffee kiosk, steam from the paper cup stayed visible almost all the way to the clinic door. At 3:50, my phone buzzed. Laura. Preschool asked if I could cover tonight. I stared at the message longer than I needed to. Then another one appeared. I said no, I already had plans. I smiled before I could stop myself. What plans? Walk, coffee, half an hour where nobody needs anything from me. A third message followed. You can be there too, if you're free. I finished my last chart on time and walked to Juniper Park. Laura was already at the table. Her daughter was on the swings, legs pumping hard enough to make the chains creak. Laura's canvas tote and the girl's light jacket were piled on the chair directly opposite her. The chair beside Laura was empty. I stopped next to the table and looked from the bag to her. Seating chart? I asked. A small smile moved across her face. I thought you could sit here, if you want. That last part mattered. I pulled out the chair beside her and sat down. The difference was only a couple of feet, but I felt it immediately. From across the table, I had learned the shape of her expressions. Beside her, I noticed smaller things. The faint scent of soap in her hair. The way she tucked one foot behind the chair leg when she was nervous. The glance she gave her daughter every few minutes without stopping our conversation. I tried the cards, I said. I know. They worked better than I expected. Laura turned toward me. With the child from yesterday? A different one. He still hated the suction. Most reasonable people do. I laughed once. My receptionist has decided I invented visual schedules. That's upsetting. I corrected the record. Good. Then she went quiet. You really told them no tonight? I asked. Yes. Was it hard? Ridiculously. She looked toward the swings. For about 10 minutes after I said it, I kept thinking of useful things I should do with the time so it wouldn't be wasted. What did you come up with? Grocery store, laundry, reorganizing the hall closet. Strong Thursday night options. She gave me a look. I let the humor go. And what did you choose? Laura looked down at her coffee. This. Not me. Not yet. This. An hour she had chosen because she wanted it. I understood the distinction, and I respected it. We sat there until her daughter came running over to announce that one shoelace had become dangerous. Laura bent to retie it. I held her cup because she handed it to me without thinking. That was the first thing she had ever put directly into my hand. She took it back when she stood. Neither of us mentioned it. The following Thursday, Laura texted me at 3:58. Can you get to the park at 4:25 today? I looked at my schedule. My last patient was already checking out. Yes. I was there at 4:23. Her daughter was with 2 familiar kids near the swings, dragging the toe of one sneaker through the mulch while the other 2 talked. Laura sat at the table with her coffee untouched. The chair beside her was open again. I sat down without making a joke about it. For a minute, she said nothing. Her fingers rested around the cup, but didn't lift it. "I've been thinking about what I said that first day," she said. I waited. I keep waiting for some morning where I wake up and feel completely certain. Like fear is supposed to disappear before I'm allowed to make a decision. Her eyes stayed on the playground. It hasn't. I turned slightly toward her, but I didn't interrupt. I still worry about my daughter. I still worry about getting attached. I still don't know what happens 6 months from now. She took a breath. But I don't want not ready to answer every question before I even get to choose. Then she looked at me. I am not promising forever, Logan. I'm not asking for forever today. I know. Her voice softened. That's part of why I'm asking. She set her cup down. Would you take me to dinner tomorrow night? A real date? For weeks, I had been careful not to turn every opening into a bigger request. This one was hers. Yes, I said. I still want that. Very much. The tension left her shoulders in a slow breath. Good, she said, because I already asked Mrs. Higgins to sit with her tomorrow, 7 to 9:30. You arranged it before you asked me? I needed the choice to be mine before I knew your answer. That made sense to me in a way a grand speech never would have. Then dinner at 7, I said. One step. One step. We picked a small place on Main Street after Laura checked the menu on her phone and said it worked for her. Neither of us had to dress like someone else. She checked the time twice, saved the restaurant name, then put the phone back in her tote. We didn't kiss. We didn't need to prove anything to the people walking past the table. We sat beside each other for another 10 minutes, close enough that our arms touched once when I reached for my cup. Neither of us moved away quickly. When her daughter ran over 10 minutes later, breathless and asking for a snack, Laura handed her a bag of pretzels. By the way, sweetie, Laura said casually, wiping a smudge of dirt off the girl's cheek, Mommy is going to go have dinner with Logan tomorrow night, so Mrs. Higgins is going to come over and watch a movie with you. The little girl chewed on a pretzel, looked at me, gave a brief nod, and ran back toward the playground. Laura watched her go. Then she looked at me. Still okay? I asked. Still okay, she said. That was enough. Weeks later, the leaves around Cedar Glen had turned deep orange along the edges. Our lives had not become easier because we had gone on a date. My clinic still ran late some afternoons. Laura still had closing days at the preschool. There were Fridays when Mrs. Higgins wasn't available, and we moved dinner to another night. There were Thursdays when one of us texted that the park wasn't going to happen. Nothing collapsed when that happened. Our first real dinner had lasted 90 minutes. Laura had checked the time twice before 8 o'clock. The third time, she looked at her silent phone, then set it face down beside her plate. No one needs me right now, she said, almost like the fact surprised her. Do you need to go? She looked at me across the small table. No. A few minutes later, while I was telling her about a patient who had tried to negotiate his flossing down to alternate Tuesdays, Laura reached across the table and rested 2 fingers against the back of my hand. Her touch was light at first, but she let her fingers rest there long enough for both of us to know it wasn't an accident. I turned my hand slightly beneath hers. She didn't pull away. I am having a good time, she said. I'm also still a mother. I assumed both could be true. She smiled then, the same soft smile from the first afternoon at Juniper Park, only without the apology in it. After that, we kept dating in small, practical pieces. Friday dinner when the sitter worked. A walk after my last patient when Laura had an early preschool day. Thursday coffee at Juniper Park when her daughter wanted the swings and neither of us needed the afternoon to be more than what it was. I never started showing up at her apartment uninvited. She never started arranging her life around my schedule. I kept the longer appointment blocks for anxious kids. She kept saying no to the permanent Thursday closing slot, even on weeks when the extra money would have been useful. One Thursday, I walked through the park gates with the wind tugging at my jacket. Her daughter was already halfway up the climbing structure, calling to another child and paying no attention to me. She glanced over once, waved, and went back to what she was doing. Laura was at the table. 2 coffees sat near the center. Her tote bag occupied the chair opposite her. Before I reached the table, she hooked 1 foot around the leg of the chair beside her and pulled it out. I stopped. "You saving that for someone?" I asked. "For the dentist who's supposed to be here at 4:40. Unreliable profession. He usually texts." I sat down beside her. She slid 1 coffee toward me. Black. "You've memorized a difficult profile. Don't make me regret it." I smiled and took the cup. For a while, we did what we had always done. She told me one of her preschoolers had spent the morning insisting that a paper plate was a steering wheel. I told her a 7-year-old had asked whether dentists were allowed to eat candy or if it was a licensing violation. Then Laura looked at me over the rim of her cup. "Are you free next Friday?" "I can be. Do you want to keep it?" "Yes." No apology. No explanation about whether she had earned the time. Just yes. I reached across the few inches between us and rested my hand on the table, palm up. I didn't take hers. Laura looked down at it. Then she put her hand in mine. Her daughter shouted from the slide that she had found a red leaf shaped like a star. Laura squeezed my fingers once, let go, and called back that she wanted to see it. As she turned toward the slide, she looked back at me once and smiled. The moment passed. The relationship didn't. That was what I had misunderstood when I first told her I would be there when she was ready. I had thought ready would sound like certainty. It didn't. It sounded like a woman saying no to 1 more closing shift. It looked like an empty chair moved from across the table to beside her. It felt like a hand offered and chosen, then released because a 6-year-old had found something important near the slide. Maybe being ready was never the day fear disappeared. Was it anything more than the day Laura stopped leaving the chair beside her empty, just because she was afraid that someday it might be empty again?